Okay, so I just want to move back to our little writing sets, and I've made a little tray for them, and this will fit onto the top shelf of that narrow unit, and this is 43mm wide. Just double check that. Yeah, 43, which is 1 5/8 of an inch. The front, back and side strips are 3mm high, so 1/8 of an inch. And then it is 17mm deep, which is 11/16 of an inch deep. So just made that up like a drawer, really. Attach your sides to the base and then your front and back. And then, so that they can sit in there at a bit of an angle, I'm going to glue this strip along the back. So just cut a strip that just fits in there. Press that into the back there. And then I just want to sit this little piece here at a bit of an angle like that. So that's why I've glued that strip in there, so it's got something to actually lean against. So apply glue probably to the bottom of that and then a little way up the back as well. Little strip along the back there. Should hold it. It's not really supporting any weight, it's just to sort of so that we can angle them, you know. And press that down like that, just so it's sitting at a bit of an angle like that. And then these will sit against it. I'll get them all in there just so we can see how that will look. Just because they're so sort of thin, otherwise they'd be lost on the shelf. So I thought that would be quite a good way of doing it. So I'm going to paint that, and I think I'll use that lovely blue again that we used for the CD box. And then in the meantime, I've cut some more, I printed another sheet of puzzles, and I've cut some more sort of box innards, if you like, for those. So I'm going to cover those, and that's really just so I've got a bit of bulk for our central shelf. And this isn't how it's all going to, I'll just sort of put everything on there to move it out of the way, but I want to do some puzzles on these lower shelves which aren't going to be as visible, and then maybe just one set of puzzles at the top with some books, and the rest of the books will divide onto the narrow shelf. And I've also got some postcards I want to put on here, which we'll also have in a little angled sort of storage tray. And I'm trying to think what else I've got. I know I've got something else to go on there as well. Oh yes, the greetings cards, which I also want to do in another little angled tray. So we'll have quite a bit to put on the top there. So we'll just have a few little books and bits stood around. But that's going to be fun dressing that. But I want to get all of those other sheets made up first, and then we can see exactly what we've got. Oh, and I've also got the mugs, and this was a suggestion from Nina East as well, to do some little mugs with some water slide transfers on. So again, I'm going to ask Matt if he'll do me a couple of designs for the transfers. I Heart the Beach, and we'll have some Little Harbour Homewares ones as well. We'll just do 3 of each design and get those stuck on, and I can also do the road sign name on that transfer sheet at the same time. And these little mugs I sell in my Etsy shop. I really like these ones because they're angled and they're quite a good size as well. So they're 11mm high, so that would be about 130mm high in real life, or 5 inches, so quite a large mug. But it would be like a sort of large coffee mug. I quite like those because they've got like a nice narrow handle on them. And the code for those, if you did want to know, it is D2219. Okay, so I'll paint that little box, and then we'll move on to those other sheets. So my puzzle boxes are all drying over there, and this little tray is now dry as well, so I'm going to glue the writing sets into place. And I'm just going to begin by putting a bit along that back plinth, I suppose. And then actually in the tray. I'll see if I can just put those all in one. I don't think we're going to need them to stick them together as well. Make sure they're all the right way around. Those ones as well. Trying to get my neatest one at the front there, but I don't really think there's much in them. Let's bring the shelf in and we'll actually glue that into place. So I'm just putting a bit of glue on the bottom there. I'm going to slide that into place on the top shelf. Want that to sit right towards the front. Actually just grab another cocktail stick and pull that forwards. And I can use that cocktail stick to press it down as well. That's our first shelf. So I've got the postcards left off of that sheet, and I do actually want to back these onto another sheet of thicker paper, and this is 100 GSM paper, so I'm going to stick those on there just so that they don't sort of start curling up when we put them into the little display stand. Let's stick that on there and then cut those out once it's dry. Stick that down on there. Make sure again they're all nice and flat. Curl up a little bit at that end. Okay, so they can go to one side to dry. And then I've got here the greetings cards, and I've just really left enough space between them so that you can cut out the back of the card. Some of them are you know, landscape, so you'd cut out a piece of white above and then fold that over, so like with those 6 there. And I think the rest of them are portrait, so you'd have your piece of white going to the left hand side. Actually there's another couple of landscape ones up there, so do your white square above. So I just want to cut these out, and then we'll make like a little pretend envelope to go behind with a little triangle flap coming over the front of the card. And then, like I say, we can make that little wooden stand. So let's get these cut out. So what I'd actually do is just go along like that and straighten on this bottom row. And you want the little sort of white flap above to be the same size again as the card. So just sort of leave enough by eye. Cut around your card like that. And then fold it in half, and it might help to fold it over your rule because then you'll get a neater fold. That. Make sure that it's lined up. And then trim off the paper at the back. So there you've got your little landscape greeting card. So do that with each of them. So I've cut out all of the cards, and then I've just started making some little envelopes, And all that is actually a little bit of paper cut larger than the card, and then angles cut in the top flap, and then just fold that round. You don't need to glue it or anything like that, that can just sit in the little stand like that. So to do that, I've kept some of the sort of offcuts over here. So take one of your cards, I want that to go around that way. So leave at the sort of left hand edge of your portrait card probably about 3 or 4 millimeters for your flap, and you want to leave a tiny little border at the top and bottom. Put that there like that. Cut along the edge of the card. Leave your little border the other side as well. Keep hold of it, cut your angles, and then fold the flap around the card. Like that. I thought that was quite an effective way of doing it. And then I've also got here some different coloured card. It's got some nice bright yellow and bright blue, and I've also got like a pale blue post-it note here as well. That colour will look nice with some of the cards. So mix up the colours of the envelopes just to make it look a little bit brighter on the stand. But you normally find that you've got the same coloured envelope with each sort of card design, so try and keep the same one with each design. And I'm not sure how we're going to make the stand for this one regards to size. We might just make it you know, all the little steps the same size, and then just fit in what we can. You know, just put the cards in willy-nilly, rather than trying to fit the steps to each card size, if you see what I mean. But we'll see how it goes. So I've now done all of the envelopes, and I want to make a little card stand. So to get the sizes for this, I sort of laid the cards together and then sort of concertinaed them upwards as well, and I think this is going to be about right, but if not, then I can adjust the sizes. But I'll show you how to build it anyway, and then if I change the sizes, the technique will still be the same, and it's similar to our calendar display box as well. So we'll start again by shaping the sides, which are those two pieces there, and again we're going to do that 6mm or 1/4 of an inch line along the top, like that. So if you do that in from the right hand side, let me move over a little bit, and then up from the bottom on the left hand side of the piece. 6mm, 1/4 of an inch, and then we're going to cut away in between those 2 points. So you have a piece looking like that, and do the same with your other side. So in 6mm from the right hand side at the top, and up 6mm from the left hand side at the bottom, and then cut between those 2 points. Pieces. So just before we begin construction, I also want to round over the top corners on the back, which is your largest piece. So you can start that off on your sandpaper by just sort of sweeping it towards you, bringing it into an upright position. Do that on both top corners, and then just tidy that up in your hand just to get a nice curve on there. I've done this a little bit taller than it needs to be, just so that we can get the label up there as well, and have like the little card code pricing label up there as well. I'll find those online in a moment. that, and then we can begin construction. So apply glue along each edge of the base piece. Put that down. Attach your sides. Make sure you've got a flush edge along the front and back. Same that side as well. And once this is constructed, I'll have a think then about the little steps to go inside. Not quite sure yet what we'll make those out of. The camera's not quite right. Let me just grab my spare strip wood. Give that a press. Just let that dry off for 30 seconds or so. Apply glue first of all to the back edges. Just be really careful, just because it's obviously quite sort of top heavy. Once we've got that back on, that will strengthen it up a bit. Stand that back down there. Bring in your back. Okay, get your sides lined up with the outer edges of the back piece. Seems quite large, but I'm hoping this is going to be the right size. Because they're such nice pictures, I didn't want them all sort of crammed in. I want to be able to see them. Make sure we've got those nice flush edges down there. We'll attach the front now, and then we can do a bit of jiggling if we need to. Put the front into place. Okay, so that can now be left to dry. And whilst that's drying, I'll have a think about those steps on the inside. I wanted to have that low front, obviously, so we can see the cards at the front in there. And then we'll have, you know, them going up like that. So I think we've got plenty of room. Well, it does seem quite a big stand, but we need the room for the label at the top as well. So let's just let that dry and then we can go from there. Okay, so once that's dry, again, sand around your sides, and then you can sand just to curve over the top of that side piece as well. And then what we're going to do is fit 4 5x5 strips, and that's 13/64 of an inch, into the back of the unit, like so. And then we're going to glue 2 in front of those, and that will create those steps that I was talking about. I'm still worried this might be a little bit big, but we'll make it up anyway, and then I'll have a look and see how it looks on that central unit. I don't want it blocking too much of the background, and I was thinking of having it in the centre of that unit, but putting it over to one side might work better, because then we're not going to be blocking the sort of narrow central shelf. And if it is too big and I need to make some more cards, then I'll do that. I can just print some more, another of those sheets off. And I'm just looking in the shop as I'm talking. I could perhaps find somewhere else to put it, and we could make a base for it. But let's see how it looks on the central island first. So I've just cut these strips just so that they fit nicely inside. You just want to make them a little bit narrower than the box. So you'll need 6 of those of that same size. I'm just going to glue them into place, the back ones first, and then 2 in front. Push that right into that back corner, because you don't want any cards slipping down the back. You can see there I'm applying the glue to 2 adjacent sides of the strip so that it sticks on the bottom and on the back. Need some more glue, I think. So just stick those 4 at the back, and then we'll do the 2 in front. That's the 4 at the back there, and I'm just going to do 2 in front of those. This is a good way as well of using up some of your old sort of scraps of strip wood. I've got these all out of my sort of bits drawer. And one on top of that. And there. Press those in. Let that dry off for a bit, and then that piece is ready for paint. And again, I'm going to use that lovely bright blue colour for mine. So while the card stand is drying, I'm going to cut the postcards out. These have all now dried onto the thicker paper. And then we're going to make a little box stand for these as well. And hopefully we'll be able to get these onto the narrow shelf underneath our writing paper sets. Okay, so I've got the pieces here for the postcard display box, and we're going to do the same thing again. So if you take the two side pieces, and we'll go along 3mm in from the right hand side, and then 3mm up from the bottom left hand edge, and again cut between those 2 points. I'm just going to grab something to prop the rule up with because it's such a small piece. Am I in camera there yet? And then again cut away at an angle. Oops. That's because the piece of wood I've got there is thinner than the bit that I'm actually cutting into. Come back across because I'm not quite in the right place there. Like that. That's one side, and then do the same thing again with the other side. So 3mm from the right hand side, and 3mm up from the bottom left hand edge, and then cut away. So again, round over those top corners of your back piece, and then we're going to construct the piece again in exactly the same way. I think we'll all be experts now at making little stepped display boxes. So attach your sides, let that dry off for a moment, and then again apply glue to the back edges first. Again, just be really careful. It's still quite flimsy at this stage. Pop that back down. Attach the back. Pull the sides out to meet the edges. And I've done this one so that we can get two postcards in side by side. With one it just looked a little bit narrow, and this way we'll look as though we've got more postcards as well. I only did the 3 designs of those. So let's lay that down and put a bit of glue on the front as well. Pop it back up and attach the front strip. Quite tricky to get in there with that. Bring your strips in again to help. Oops. Just trying to line that side up a bit better. Press that together. So we'll let that dry off again, then we can tidy it up with a bit of sandpaper, and then I'm going to use the 3x3 strip again to create those steps. So I've got the shop door back on the desk whilst that little postcard display unit's drying, and I want to attach our little pub bands poster which Matt has made up here. I'm just trying to get that to focus. There we are. So live music at the sea shanty, and that actually says Beach Cooma Street underneath, which is the name of our street. And there's the bands. And I'll put that on one of the PDF sheets as well, if you want to use that in your shop door. And I'm going to attach it the same way as we did the other signs, just by using some double-sided tape and then sticking that into place. I've got my tape here. And I'm actually just going to stick that down there in that bottom corner. So I stopped filming then, as I actually needed to get around the back and hold the door up while I put that into place. But I think that looks really good there. So I'm going to put the door back now, and I've actually moved the shop down onto the front desk so that I can get in and attach the paintings. Okay, so I've stuck a strip onto the back of each of the paintings, and that's just, as I've talked about before, that paintings don't normally just sit flat to a wall, and I've just used a 1.5mm strip, and I've done that on each of the paintings. And then I'm just going to have them sort of staggered a bit up here, so I'll have that one there, and then there's smaller ones at the bottom, one higher than the other. So I'm just going to put a bit of glue onto the strip and then along the bottom edge of the painting. Sort of go in the middle of the wall with that one, and just slightly higher than that top shelf. I'm just actually looking by eye to see if that's level along the top there. Get that in place, and what I'll do is I'll just bring in my small rule, and I'm just going to measure from that top cove in there 25mm. And just needs to come down a touch. Yep, pleased with that. I should have actually moved the counter out of the way. I like to make things difficult. So once you're happy that it's in the right place, give it a press. And obviously if you don't want to permanently fix your paintings, or if you're perhaps just using printouts, you might want to back them onto a piece of card or something. But if you don't want to permanently fix any paintings, then you can use tacky wax. But I don't see any reason why I would want to remove these paintings in future, so I'm quite happy to glue them into place. Looks really good up there. And then I think I'll have the next one there like that, just slightly overhanging, and then that one slightly lower down and over to that side. I think that fills that wall out really nicely, and then I'll do the little artist label to go in there. Yep, so let's do that. So that's those glued into place. I think they look really good there. So let's put the counter back and just see how they look with that in place as well. That will go about there. And that gives a really nice backdrop along there now. Okay, so let's go back to our little postcard display unit. I've sanded that on all sides. I sanded along the front edge again to shape that little front bit, and then rounded over the tops of those side pieces. And for the little steps for the postcards, we're going to have 3 pieces of 3x3 strip, that's 1/8 of an inch, and we'll have 2 at the back and 1 at the front. So we'll have the bottom 1 step and 2 steps to create that nice layered effect. So start by gluing the back one into place, and I've chosen some of my really sort of small pieces of strip that have got little chips in them or knots in the wood. They're just not the nicest piece of strip, and it's a good way to use up again your little bits of scrap wood, especially if they're not going to be seen, as these aren't. So stick that first one at the back there, and obviously just cut these, leaving enough so that you can get them into the box without a squeeze. That one in front of it, and then that final one on top of the back one there. Press it all down. Remove your excess glue, and then this piece is ready to paint as well. And again, I'm going to use that lovely bright blue colour. Okay, so I've also made a decision about our card display stand, our greetings card stand, and I do think that's going to be a little bit too large to have on a separate unit. So I'm going to build a base for it. So now you have the choice of either having it just as this little stand that can sort of stand independently in your shop. You could perhaps put it on those side shelves or on the central unit. Or you can do as I'm going to do and build a base, and this will then just stick on top of the base. And we'll have that standing at the side of the little island unit, and then we can maybe have a basket of beach balls in front of it. But I just think this is too nice to discard, and I really don't want to make it again as a smaller unit. But of course that is another option. You could make this just reduce the sizes if you wanted to make that a little bit smaller. And we've done quite a few of these now, so I'm sure you've got the technique down. But if you do want to make the base, as I'm going to make, I've given the cutting list, and really simple, again, similar to a sort of drawer, but we're going to make it into a box. So take the smaller of your sort of larger two pieces, if you know what I mean, so the narrower piece, and that is our back piece. And we're going to begin by attaching a side. And the reason I'm doing it like this is so that we've got that nice neat front, so we can't see any joins at the front of the unit. So attach a side. So it starts off rather, I suppose, like a sort of wall shelf or something, but just with a top and bottom, and then we're just enclosing it with the front piece. And we've done this in some other projects as well. Can't remember what now. I'm looking around to see if I can see any of them, but I'm not sure if it was in the shop or somewhere else. Then we're going to attach that top piece, which will sit on the inside edge. So make sure you've got nice flush edges at the top there. Just feeling with my fingers there to make sure it's flush at the top. Want a nice flat top for the card unit to sit on. This is our bottom piece going in exactly the same place, but at the other end. Make sure it's right in that corner. Turn that onto the first side. It's actually dropped a little bit there. Push that back into place. Apply glue to the sides. Lay it back down. Touch the remaining side. And then you can sort of get hold of it and give it a bit of a press. Make sure everything's lining up. And then apply your glue around the top edges. And I was just thinking then as well, as I was pressing it all together, if you wanted to leave this as an open fronted unit, maybe with a shelf in the middle, that might be a nice display unit as well. So you've got your greetings cards at the top, and then you could have some packets of wrapping paper at the bottom, or some little gift bags and things like that, little bags of bows. That might be really nice in a Christmas shop or a greetings card shop or something. But I'll do mine closed in this time. So just pop the front on. Again, make sure you've got those nice square edges all the way around. Don't press directly down in the centre of your front piece. Rid of your excess glue, shouldn't really be wiping that on my fingers. So I'm going to weigh that down and let the glue dry off, and I'm just looking for a little paint pot or something. Actually, I can probably just pop the glue on there because that sort of spreads over the edges. So I'm going to leave that to dry, and whilst that's drying I want to start displaying the greetings cards. So I'm just actually starting by going through and gluing the card into the envelope. So just a little dot of glue on the back of the card and then glue it in there like that. And I didn't think we'd need to, but it's going to be, you know, it'll make it quite messy if they're all loose as we're trying to glue them into place. So do just put a little dot of glue on. And if you're not following me along, then do that at the time when you're cutting the envelopes. Okay, so what I've done here is just glue one of each card design into place, just to get the positioning right. And I was trying to do it just by lodging them on the little steps, but they were sort of all falling. So you might just want to use a little bit of glue, or if you think you're going to want to change the layout, then just use a little bit of tacky wax. So what I'm going to do now is glue the rest of the cards into place, and I think that looks really good so far. And bear in mind as well that these card stands in shops are normally sort of messy and slightly out of order, so if you wanted to make it like that you could do. Maybe have a couple of cards in the wrong place. And I didn't do quite enough designs of these. But again, you can just choose some images online. And if you don't have Adobe Photoshop, you can just resize them in Word or Excel. And it's a little bit more difficult with the sizes because you can't just choose, but you can just make it small, print off a draft copy, and then go from there. Okay, so all of the cards are now stuck into place, and I'm really pleased with how that looks. So I've printed off a couple of labels to stick on there. Just a simple one that says greetings cards, in that nice colour blue again, and then I've printed off both of them here. You can't even read it, it's so small, but it's one of those little greetings cards price lists where you get the letters and a price, and I've done one with a UK pound sign and then one without any sign at all, so that you can use that in other countries. And they are just 12mm across. So I now want to stick those into place onto the top of this unit. So let me lay that down and I'll just quickly cut out the labels. Okay, so it's quite tight along here, so I've cut the sign as close up to the lettering as I can, and then the little price label will go at the end there, and that just leaves enough room between them as well. I'm just going to glue these into place. Just want that to come over a tiny bit actually. Sort of make sure you're happy that that's straight, that line along the top there. And of course, you know, you can do your own ones of these sort of simpler signs and labels. I wanted to make them a little bit more decorative. Got the little sign at the end there. And it's quite difficult to see even which way around this goes. So let me check before I glue it on. I know I've got just some... No, it's that way, because the letters are obviously on the left. I should have used my tweezers really. Just going to have that at the end there. Pleased with that. Okay, so the base is now ready for paint, and once that had dried I just went around and sanded again on all sides, just so you've got a nice flush box, flat top and bottom, so that we can then attach the sort of display section on top like that. I think that looks really good. I'm glad I decided to turn it into a sort of floor standing unit now. So I've got that and the little postcard one to paint. Then we can attach the postcards, and I've just got a couple of more jobs I want to get fitted into this episode. And then I think we'll have to call it a day, because I know it's going to be a couple of long episodes. Okay, so let me go and find that lovely blue paint out again. Okay, so whilst that paint is drying, I want to cut out these tea towels. And again, I've done these onto a PDF sheet, which you can just print off onto your fabric. And I did a video all about printing onto fabric, which you'll find over on YouTube. If you just put Julie Warren printing onto fabric, that should bring it up. And in that video, because I was using the fabric for bedding, I actually used an interfacing to make it a little bit tougher. But with these, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to cut them straight out of the fabric, which I have run under cold water to seal the colours. And this has been drying now for quite a while, a few days. So I'm just going to now cut these out. And the reason I'm not adding the interfacing is because I want them to be really nice and pliable, because I want to have a go at sort of having 3 of them hanging off the end of our central display unit. And then I'll do the others in a little folded sort of packet. And I've got some labels here somewhere as well that we can wrap around them, saying tea towels, packs of 2. So I've got my proper fabric scissors here. I'm just going to go around and cut these out. Now, somebody had actually suggested selling the actual tea towels in my Etsy shop, but obviously none of these are my design, so I don't want to risk getting in trouble with copyright issues or anything by selling somebody else's artwork, even in a miniature size. I don't think that would be right, so I will just share the designs with you. Okay, so I've cut the tea towels out. Now I just want to sort of drape 3 of them on the end of this counter as though they're hanging there, but I'm not going to make hooks or anything like that. So I've sort of concertinaed 3 up that are the same size, obviously portrait. And I'm going to sort of glue them into a point at the top and then just glue them to the end of the little display counter there. So I'll have 3 of them hanging there. And then the rest of them I'll put, like I say, in the little packs. But I just thought it might look nice to have some hanging in there as well, so that we can see the whole thing. So I'll just start by creating that sort of top thin edge. So concertina it up first, get it into a nice shape. And I want a sort of flat edge to attach to the edge of the counter as well. And you can crease these in further down. Trim off any little stragglers at the top there. And then I'm just going to stick it to that edge. Let's get a bit more glue on there. Put that one at the end. And it just creates a nice bit of colour as well, I think. I'm not having them overlapping the top of the unit, just having them stuck right along that edge. And I've chosen 3 nice colourful ones here. Trim that off as well. When you haven't backed them as well, they can sort of start to fray, so just trim off any fraying cotton rather than pulling it off. Otherwise it might start to unravel. So I've glued those into place on the edge of the counter there, and I think that looks really nice. And then the rest of them I want to pack into little bundles like this. So I've got a pack of 2 tea towels on there, but obviously I'm only using 1, and I've basically just folded the tea towel lengthways and then glued the label around. So if I take the next one, if you fold, let me just move the camera back a bit. Fold the tea towel into 3, so you're folding it into the middle at the back like that. press the folds in and then fold it in half, like that. And then take one of your labels, fold it around the back, again press the seam, snip that off in the middle of the towel. You can then glue that down, just a little dab of glue under there. Bring that one round, again trim it off in the middle, and then glue that one down as well. And then if your top bit is a little bit uneven, you can just go across there with your fabric scissors and even it up. Leave the sort of front, top of the front towel, but just trim away at the back there. I think they look quite good. And I've actually got a little tray left on those side display shelves, the shelves that are attached to the wall. So I think I'm going to display these in there. I'll go ahead and do the rest of these. So there are the folded tea towels, and I've put those into that little tray. I haven't glued them in yet, and then they'll be supported at the back by obviously the wall behind the shelves. So what I want to do now is glue the card display unit to the base. The paint has now dried. So I'm just going to apply the glue directly to the top of the base and then sit the little unit on top. And I've done it so there's just a tiny little bit of overlap at the front, just so it doesn't look like one sort of flat front edge. So get a nice straight line at the back there, and then make sure you're flush at the sides. And with this, we're not going to be able to use masking tape or clamps to hold it on, so just give it a bit of a press for 30 seconds or so, just until the glue begins to take. You might just be able to sort of get maybe a pencil and push it down if you've got any gaps in the front of your cards. But otherwise, you know, the glue will take if you just hold on to it for a moment. My fingers are covered in dried glue now. It's going everywhere. Okay, so that's that. Just get rid of that glue. I'm really happy with that. And then the final little job I'm going to do today is to glue the little postcards into our postcard display here. So I'm going to work from back to front, so I'll just begin by putting a bit of glue along the back there. I need to do a little label for this as well actually, so I'll quickly do one of those as well once I've glued these into place. And I'll just put a little bit on that back step as well. And then I'll put those at the back there, and you can lay two side by side here. They'll just about fit in there. Doesn't matter if you need to overlap them. I have actually got a little bit of room left that side. I'm just going to put a little dot to each of those back ones. On those next two steps, be careful not to get it onto your postcards at the top there. This cocktail stick's got too much glue on it really, I should start using another one. And then let's put those ones on next. finally matte little design at the front there. So I'll just go and do a little label for those, or for the display unit rather. So I've got the little postcard sign here as well, which I'm going to glue into place at the top there. Let me take my tweezers again, make it a bit easier. And all of these sort of extra little labels that I'm printing, I'm adding on to that tea towel label sheet. So you'll find all of those on there. And there's enough tea towel labels if you wanted to do them all as the little packs rather than having them hanging at the end of the unit. Try and get that centralised there. And that one as well. Nice little simple one there. So, as I say, I'm going to end it there now, and I did want to get a little bit more done. The only reason I'm sort of ending it there today is because it's now 4:10 on Friday afternoon, and this video needs to go on Tuesday, and Mondays are more or less always taken up with packing Etsy parcels. So I know I've now only got an hour today before we take Woody for his walk. I could maybe have a look at it this evening as well, and then I'll probably work Saturday and Sunday as well, getting that edited. I've already made a start and I'm already up to nearly an hour, and I've got lots more clips to put in, so I know there'll be 2 hour long or more videos, so 2 hour or more long videos rather. But what I had wanted to do, look at the mess over here, was actually create the displays on the little shelving unit and the central display unit. I've done some a sheet here for some water slide transfers to put onto the mugs. And what was the other thing? Oh yes, and I've also got a water slide transfer here for the street name, and I wanted to do up a street sign to go on the side of the shop. So I'll begin with those few things in the next episode, and then we've got to do the window displays, the stairwells, and I wanted to do some pots outside, some plant pots with maybe some trees in them, and we've got to build in the wires at the back of the shop, and I just want to make sort of 2 brick paper covered sort of chimney breasts or chimney stacks that will go at the back there to cover those exposed wires. So that's what we want. I was going to say that's all we've got to do in the next episode, which I hope will be the final episode. And again, it will probably be another double episode. But I'm really pleased with what we've got done this time. I love making all of these little bits and pieces. I hope you do too. So I'm going to put back in what I've done so far, just so that I can have a look at it all together so far. Okay, so that's it for today's double episode, and I really hope you've enjoyed all of those little projects, and I'm really pleased with how it's looking in there now. I really love all of the different sort of levels and different heights that are going on in there. I hope you're pleased with how it's looking so far. Bye!